Spatial planning politics that focuses on planning aspect is dangerous, threatens the survival of people's lives and the existence of the city. The ideal spatial politics should be harmonious various social, economic, cultural, and environmental factors. Ignoring one aspect or vice versa, emphasizing one aspect means creating inequality or destroying the social and ecological environments of the city. Saving the ecology by building green open spaces is a good step. Likewise, providing open public spaces is much better. But the problem is that development is expensive. The government cannot provide green open spaces or develop public spaces that can be accessed and used by the community as a place for social interactions. There is a trend nowadays, starting from the 20th and 21st centuries, existing and valuable public spaces are attached to buildings called malls and plazas. Not all of Surabaya urban spaces grow according to plan. There are spaces that are formed unplanned. There are spaces that grow spontaneously. The physical form of space, city morphology, is the result of the formation of social, cultural, economic, and political life. The city and its life are non-agricultural, a center of power, a regional economic center that sucks in job seekers, creates a heterogeneous life so that inequality and social problems arise. Spatial planning is a political so that friction of interest is unavoidable. Regional People's Representative Assembly of Surabaya Regions, Dewan Perwakilan Rakyat Daerah, DPRD, fights for the public interest, but these political representative institutions also reduces the public interest at the same time. Therefore, spatial planning is not merely a technical domain, but also a political domain, and even enters into political economy. In the political domains, the contestation of power in planning represented by the actors has their respective interest targets in accordance with the authority and power they have. Especially in the current era of regional autonomy, the power of spatial planning law cannot simply be operationalized in an autonomous region. Each city has its own uniqueness related to the growth and development of the city, which is influenced by the process of urbanizations, suburbanizations, and the process of suburbanizations, followed by a decline in populations in the city center, as well as the process of reurbanizations, or the urbanization so the villages, suburban areas, gradually disappear into urban areas.
Political dilemma of spatial planning in urban areas. City construction continuously expanded until it becomes a project of accumulation of local areas or cities. Tianxing mentions this phenomenon as industrial modernity, while Elkin, McLaren, and Hillman stated that urban planners, politicians, and communities face the challenges of sustainable development within the context of urban development. The central question was how to reconstruct planning as a goal-oriented, future-making activity in light of the ubiquitous vector problems in modern government. Urban development problem lies in land use. City government and developers carried out land acquisition for infrastructure development. Government leaders at the local level or the political elites try to legitimize themselves as promoters of urban development to perform the urban development policy agenda that reverts to the concept of sustainable development. There is a propensity for interaction between development actors, namely the difficulty to translate the rhetoric of sustainable development into action. There are demands on cities regarding their resources and their impact on the global and local environment, in-depth analysis on the patterns and forms of development, providing green spaces and conservation, as well with transportation, waste, and pollution systems. Planning was by its nature political, and politics took shapes only through the process of planning, as problems and possible solutions were identified. Wicked problems had no optimal solution. Indeed, they were never solved, but only resolved over and over again. A new piece of public policy vocabulary has turned up on planners' horizons: civic engagement. For many older planners, This seems like just another term in a bundle of similar ones relating to involving and engaging in the public, citizens, in planning processes in some way. Public involvement, advocacy planning, citizen participation, collaborative planning, and inclusive partnerships. Dilemmas is often read as a criticism of rationalistic solutionism and a reflection on the limits of technical expertise in resolving public problems in a democratic policy. Rittel and Weber announced this theme in the very first sentence of the Abstract of Dilemmas, which proclaimed that the search for a scientific basis for confronting problems in social policy is bound to fail. The problems the plan implementation meets can be generally put in the following categories. A. Vague and ambiguous definitions defined in the legislative acts. B. Absence of a certain definition in the legislative acts. C. High dependence on the local government on the national government. And D. Deficiencies in local circumstance. This confirms the fact that plan implementations depend not only on other planning phases but also on multivariate actors, both state and local governments, other institutions at the local level involved in the planning process, and ultimately planners themselves. The process of spatial planning, even if it is about a small spatial unit, encompasses an entire range of steps and participants. A harsh representation of the planning process divides it into plan making and plan implementation phases which overlap at some points. An inevitable step in urban and spatial planning is the decision on plan making, which needs to be embedded in the legislative framework and to be part of political will. Then comes the creation of the plan that involves a great number of experts, relevant institutions, and, in more successful procedures, active involvement of citizens. Those steps are followed by the adoption and implementations of the plan and its evaluation through monitoring. As Taylor's rational planning model suggests, all the phases are equally relevant for obtaining desirable results. However, with the weakening of the traditionalist approach, the implementation seems to be taking prior importance in both theoretical and practical aspects of planning. The plan implementation is a process aimed to transform space so that undesirable changes and actions are prevented from happening. Still, there is no surprise in the fact that the planning theory and plan implementation outcomes still often diverge due to the planner's difficulties to represent uncertain reality on the paper. However, it is not only the responsibility of planners, but also of government's vision, political limitations, unplanned or informal processes, and mutually competitive attitude of institutions at the local, regional, and state levels. As in planning, it is also the case in the plan implementation that it depends on multiple factors, actors, available assets, circumstance, and power weighting between all these elements. Corridors of spatial regulation. Thus, changes in land use mean changes in spatial aspects that lead to a node for ecological development. The ecological crisis can trigger conflict between the community and the investors, the community and the government, and it can even trigger conflict among governments.
So, as a political product, space is the result of strategy that contradicts representations, appreciations, and practices following the socio-cultural models, the spatial interests of groups, and certain social classes' positions. This happens because the capitalist mode of production produces a specific space. The revolutionary strategy must create another mode of generating space, which, according to Lefebvre, can be done by collectively regaining control of the city and by taking back and liberating everyday life, which is highly impossible except the non-capitalist mode of production not only function as physical infrastructure, but pedestrian space in urban areas also reflects the city existence and stakeholders' conflicts. The situation shows the domination over space that is associated with the social relations of capitalist productions. The diverse use of public spaces is an indicator of the balance between the value of utilizations and space actions value.